Last night I got on the boat to heaven, and by some chance I had brought my dice along, and there I stood, and I hollered someone fade me, but the passengers, they knew right from wrong, for the people all said, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Oh, the people all said, sit down, you're rocking the boat. And the devil will drag you under by the sharp lapel of your checkered coat. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. I sailed away on that little boat to heaven, and by some chance found a bottle in my fist. And there I stood, nicely passing out the whiskey. Oh, everyone's here. I guess I'm not passing out whiskey anymore. But the passengers were bound to resist. Oh, for the people all said, beware. You're on. Too cool. Guys and dolls, wonderful. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. Hi, Judy. Hi, everyone. You know, when I go through all of this, I always wonder, is it boring for me to say hi to everyone? I don't know. Martin from Missouri and Sherry from Minnesota. Hello. Hi, everyone, says Neely. Very nice. My old friends. Elaine. Hey, Elaine, you're about the 10th one down. You're slacking, Elaine. Have you been hitting the bottle? So you had to know the song I was just singing to make that work. All righty. It's 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Monday night. I'm Joette Calabrese, and we're going to do this. We've been doing this for nearly a year. We'll keep going. We're going to use my Materia Medica for those who are interested. And I always want to make it clear, folks, this isn't the only Materia Medica in the world. Trust me. This is a very more concise one. Here it is. You can order it if you'd like on my website or call my office and they'll help you out with it. But I like to go through the Materia Medica and go through some of the most important medicines. There are some in there that we're not going to use so often, so I skip over some once in a while. But I want to go through it because I think that Materia Medica study is quite foundational to knowing homeopathy. And I don't expect you to memorize these. What I want to do is whet your appetite so that you get interested. And when you get interested enough, then you'll study more Materia Medica and you'll read Dr. James Tyler Kent that's online at no fee. And you can, it's a big, thick book. I've got it up here somewhere. Or you could get Robin Murphy's book. You have to buy that. Still very, very good investment. So these Materia Medicas are very important for your learning and for your movement forward and for doing good. And that's what we want. We want you to do good. So I want to announce that tomorrow I'll be sending out an email. Anyone who's on my email address will get this for my newest course. It's titled Make It Stop, Escape from the, I have to read this, Prison of Chronic and Acute Pain Using Practical Homeopathy. Learn effective methods to uproot pain, often for good. So that's the title. The first live webinar of the course will actually be in January, but people can purchase in advance if they'd like. And if they do that, they'll get my download of, we call her Lola. The reason we call this little person Lola is because the woman who actually who started doing all the drawings for us, her name was Lola. I mean, it still is Lola, but she no longer works for us. But this is now our little Lola, and it gives you some ideas. I don't give the exact potencies. Some of you know the potencies. If you go to my blog, it'll tell you some of the potencies and frequencies, etc. But I don't always put these potencies and frequencies on these infographics because it depends on the circumstances to a certain degree, but more importantly, I want you to learn them. And if you learn them through the course, great. If you don't learn them through the course, that's okay too. And I will also say that these are potencies and frequencies that I use with this practical homeopathy. This is the way I've learned to use it through the years. Some of it through the Banerjees, some of it just by experience, clinical experience, time spent in treating my own family, but then, the years of being in clinical practice as well. So you may find a lot of times people say to me, well, some homeopaths say to use Arnica 6X. Some say to use a 200. Why is there a discrepancy? Well, because this, medicine is very vast. It's 230 years old. It's been used in many different corners of the world. The US, of course, North America, so Canada, South America has used homeopathy, Cuba. If you're ever interested, I've written an article about Cuba and leptospirosis. It's an interesting article. You could probably Google that and still find that around. I believe I think that Wise Traditions published that for me some years ago. Very interesting study for those people whose family members don't believe homeopathy can be of any value. That's a real good one. That's a good article with very good numbers and data to substantiate what we always say about homeopathy and that it's efficacious. But also England, Germany, France, Switzerland, Spain, Portugal, South America, I think I said, India, all countries that have used and been using homeopathy for a very long time. So now let's get into the meat of the class tonight. And that is, I'm going to teach you about a great medicine for fatigue. Now, I got to tell you, it's not for all fatigues, but it's a medicine that I think of frequently if I can't find any other reason for the fatigue. In other words, if I see that fatigue is associated, not that I think it's the cause, but associated with someone who is having gut problems, or if it's fatigue related to someone who's having depression, or someone who is eating a very poor diet. I'm trying to think of some other examples. Someone who has fatigue as a result of the flu. I kind of put those aside. We have special homeopathic medicines that are very specific for those particular situations. But if it's a kind of fatigue that is not related to those other conditions, I often consider this medicine, and it's Cinchona Officinalis. I'm going to spell it Cinchona, Cinchona Officinalis. And the abbreviated word for it is China, sometimes pronounced Kina, but China, China. Not Cinna. Don't get this confused with Cinna, Cina. Cinna is a completely different medicine. It's specific for parasites and gut issues. But Cinchona Officinalis, or sometimes known as China. And don't ask me why these names can be so different. My understanding, my experience is that it's because it's coming from different centuries, different locations of the doctors who were using these medicines, and some adopted this name and others adopted another name. And we see that happening sometimes with these homeopathic medicines. But when we have Cinchona Officinalis, then we know that we're right on the mark, that it's exactly what we're looking for, otherwise known as China. So this particular medicine is very good for fatigue related to dehydration. Now, most people don't realize how easily we can become dehydrated. When a mother nurses, she's dehydrating. Unless she's really pounding water down, she can easily become dehydrated. So it's a great medicine for a nursing mother, even if she doesn't have fatigue. But if she does, it is one of the first medicines we think of. And I've got here in my book that I'll show you my book. This is one of 3 or 4. I mean, this is pretty darn heavy. And it's my notes that I keep together and I organize, and I'm still always adding to it. I just had to change the loose leaf binder. The other one fell apart because I use it so much. But for nursing, we often use China, and I've written about that on the blog. We often use it in a 200 potency, 200C. And so I urge women who are nursing to, from the moment they commence nursing till the end of their nursing career, so to speak, I suggest that they indeed use China 200. Even if the nursing is only occasional, maybe it's the second year and it's only once in a while, it's only before bed or something like that. It's still a loss of fluids. Another time when we would have a loss of fluids might be a woman who hemorrhages with her menses. This medicine can be very valuable for women who have heavy periods. It doesn't even have to be called an absolute hemorrhage. We can just say that it's heavy flow. That in itself can make a woman fatigued. Sometimes it takes her to anemia. And this is a great medicine then for anemia. There are other medicines that we add with the anemia, and I won't go into that right now, but because I do want to concentrate on this fatigue and how we differentiate. It can also be for someone who works out in the hot fields, or outside in the summer. All three of my sons worked landscaping all the way through from high school all the way through high school and into college. It's how they paid for their college education. And if they wanted to buy a car, they ended up not buying a car because they had to pay for college. But they would be exhausted from not getting enough fluids. And even though, again, they were drinking a lot of water, and also a mixture that I talk about on my blog. I can't remember what that blog is called. Perry, maybe you can look that up for me. It was a recipe for, it was instead of Gatorade. It's a recipe that I posted online that a friend of mine on my blog, turned me on to, and then I made a couple adjustments, and my sons drank that regularly, and that helped. But from time to time, they might not have a chance to drink that drink. And indeed, China was a great medicine to bring them back round again. What else? Any kind of a bleed. If you give blood, if you donate blood, you should be taking China. They should be giving that out at the hospitals and the blood banks and the blood mobiles. They should automatically be giving out Cinchona Officinalis in a 200C and using it, even if the person does not feel fatigue. It's a very important medicine anytime we lose fluids. I'm trying to think of some other times, and I bet you'll start asking questions and come up with other times. So I've used this in a 6X or 6C twice daily for that fluid loss. In more severe, I'm reading from my Materia Medica now. In more severe cases, it might be administered every few hours if it's severe enough, if someone's lost a lot of fluid in a short amount of time. So perspiration, diarrhea, after diarrhea, because that can be very dehydrating. Diarrhea can kill, especially in infants, small children. China, excellent. Next time anyone goes on a mission to Haiti or to Africa, take China along with you. It can be a lifesaver for children. And then learn the medicines that are for diarrhea as well. And you might be able to save some small children's lives, which is what this is all about. So it can also be for extreme weight loss. When it's inadvertent or when it's someone goes on a long-term fast. Sometimes people go on fasts, and I don't disagree with fasts if they're moderate and you're in good enough health. I think these fasts can be pretty good in certain circumstances, but if they're too long, I actually did one, I think it was for 10 days once, and I broke out in hives all over the place. It was horrible. I just drank water the whole time. And to be honest, I probably did not drink enough water to be faithful to the paradigm of fasting. So it's for extreme weight loss, despite the consumption of even if there's a healthy, normal amount of food. So it can also be for the elderly. Sometimes they lose their appetite and you have to give them fluids. And before you can get them, a saline solution is an excellent idea. I'm looking forward to the day when we can buy an IV at a local drugstore, so that if a child has had diarrhea and is dehydrated, and of course we would start right away with this medicine, China or Cinchona Officinalis, that we could also help move it along faster with an IV, and we could all learn how to use an IV so that we could become more autonomous. Because as far as I'm concerned, that is one of the main goals.
We're supposed to be talking about soft tissue pain tonight.
Soft tissue pain tonight? Oh, I got the wrong one?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess so.
Can you do that?
Can I do that? Yeah. How did we get that mixed up? Oh, well, so pain, soft tissue pain. Let's go back. Let's go back to soft tissue pain. I see all the hearts, so I'm assuming I'm doing all right, but thank you for making me aware of what we had put out. So now you get 2 for the price of 1 tonight. So next week was going to be China or Cinchona Officinalis. So now we'll do another one as well, and we'll go on to something brand new next week. So soft tissue pain. You think it's funny, don't you? Okay, for soft tissue pain, one of my favorite medicines is Cimicifuga. Cimicifuga. Racemosa is the second word, but Cimicifuga is good enough. Cimicifuga racemosa. And I will tell you, one of my favorite ways to use this medicine was for my father. My father was my lab rat. And we lost him 2 years ago. He was just past 90. So he lived a pretty long life. I wanted him to live longer. I've said this before. But he had a heart condition, and he was experiencing a lot of angina. And they had given him many different medications. And I said, Dad, please just let me give you this. And he was so frightened by this pain because it was nearly chronic. He had it through the years on and off. We had used Magfos before. Magfos wasn't touching it any longer. And so I went to Cimicifuga, and I used it in a 30, and I told him to take it for his angina. On an average, I wanted him to take it twice daily. But instead, we needed to use it a little more frequently in the beginning. Now, what was the beginning? I expected this medicine to take about, 2 weeks to at least kick in. No, in very short order, and I don't remember the length of time, but it was only about, goodness sakes, 2 days. And he started to notice a change. And he called me up and he said, oh my gosh, I have a little angina, but it's nothing as severe. It's not lasting as long. As soon as I take the Cimicifuga, it goes away. Can I take this more frequently if I need to? And I said, you bet, Dad. Absolutely. I want you to use it. So he used it for about, I'm going to say 3 or 4 times a day. Maybe one day it was 5 times because we woke up in the middle of the night. And it worked every time. And then he only needed to take it about twice a day. He carried it with him. He wouldn't go anywhere without it. But it's also, let me see what I've got here. I want to make sure that I've covered everything. Let's just see. I want to remind you that this medicine and most homeopathic medicines are not intended to cover up pain. This is not about making the pain not felt, not experienced, but the condition is still a problem. No, this actually aided with the muscle on some level. I can't tell you exactly how, but the angina was no longer needed to frighten us about what was going on with his heart. Now, we knew he had cardiovascular disease. I often use this in a 200 potency for other kinds of soft tissue pains. It can be used sometimes for gut pain. It's not the first medicine I think of, but I like it for babies who have colic, especially if they're pulling their legs up, and that usually is the indication for colic. And I would use it for a baby. I would use it in a 6 or a 200. let's see some of these questions here. Read up on Cimicifuga. Learn everything you can about it. It's an excellent medicine, and we're still in the seas, as you know, because I already skipped over to China. That's my husband's fault. I know. He said, tonight you're doing this one. Yep, I'm going to blame you. And he's laughing. Oh, sure. It's funny for you, pal.
You're so smooth.
Okay. Would love to learn how to use an IV. Me too. Me too. I've never used one. I'd like to be able to use it. I don't think it's a big deal. I think a couple of pokes here and there, and you'd learn in no time, right? All right, let's see. Where are we? Let's get some questions here. 2 for the price of 1. Love it. Soaking it all in. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Can I spell it again? What do I need to spell? I think we have someone doing that. Cimicifuga. 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 My son has had diarrhea for 2 weeks, and we are about to travel. China. Cinchona is for the loss of fluids and the ailments from that, including fatigue. It's not necessarily alone to deal with diarrhea, although I shouldn't say that. I have seen it work with diarrhea in and of itself. And hold on a second. Let me just look here for 1 second. Sometimes, I thought I had a note on that. Sometimes when we mix China 200 Cinchona bark, Cinchona Officinalis, with aloe, homeopathic aloe, 200C, that can deal with diarrhea. So it's to deal with the fatigue and the loss of fluids and the diarrhea itself. How about that? You're getting 3 for the price of 1. All right. Okay. I just bought it and used it 2 times a day for a few days and noticed a huge difference. Excellent. Very good to hear that. Very good. See, it really can make a huge difference if it's used for the right reason, if you've got your rationale tightened up. Okay. I have taken Cimicifuga successfully, 200 potency for threatened miscarriage due to almost constant cramping and contractions throughout the end of my pregnancies. You bet. You bet. That's a good one. Absolutely. I've seen that happen too. Not a lot of times, but once or twice. Let's see. Cimicifuga versus Bellis. Bellis is more muscle cramps like arnica. And I don't even know if I'd call it cramps, more muscle injuries. And Cimicifuga is more the organ, a more function, how do I say this? An organ such as the uterus, such as the heart. So it's soft tissue, but it's actually an organ. Whereas Bellis, I think of more in terms of injuries and to breasts and to muscles. Okay, let's see. Often wish I could get some IV solution for home too. Wouldn't that be nice? Anybody out there enterprising who has a background in this, let's get it out to the public. Let's get these good saline solutions out to the public that we can just plug in ourselves. Learn so much from you. Use homeopathy every single day. I love it. Isn't it great? Calcarb is your favorite. Love to hear it. Aloe, got it. Okay. Nursing mothers, you bet. Would China be a good choice for 88-year-old man who suffered 2 heat exhaustion episodes last summer and hasn't felt the same energy since? Yes. It's not the first one I think of. It would be more like the second one. I would go with a heat exhaustion medicine, even though the heat exhaustion is over with, but absolutely, I would consider that very strongly. Then the heat exhaustion could also be glenoinum. There are a couple of others. Read up on them.
There was someone that asked,
how do you give China to someone recovering from diarrhea, vomiting, dehydration? Here's the thing. You don't need to get the medicine in the mouth to get into the stomach. That's not the goal. The goal is to get it in the mouth. And if the person is vomiting, you just put it, really tuck it in between the lips and the gums and hold it there. If they vomit, no big deal. They've still gotten it. You only need it in there for a minute. Let's see. I'm nursing a 2-year-old, tired a lot. You bet. I will bet, Kelly, that you're going to see big change, and promise me that if you do see a change that you come back and tell us next week, okay? Take Cinna or Sim, okay, for chronic fatigue. Not Cinna. Not Cinna. C-I-N-A is not it.
Someone wanted to say hello to their children, but I can't find it.
Okay, someone wanted to say hello to their children. Okay, if someone has anemia from blood thinner, is China good? China's good regardless of the cause for anemia. Yes, regardless of whether or not it's from a synthetic drug or blood loss or whatever. Using lots of homeopathic treatments right now with a sick kiddo, fevers with seizures. Go to my blog. I hope you get that information there. I talk about that. How often do nursing women take China? Twice daily. Love that shawl. Thank you. Yes, it is Lily Pulitzer. I live in Florida now. Yeah, I'm addicted. May we see your cute pink top by you standing up? I don't know if I'll stand completely up, but you can see. Yeah, it is pretty, isn't it? Kind of long. I know, I love it. Yes, I'm happy to show my pink top. When you live in Florida, and I'm taking advantage. Listen, everything is relative. When you come from Buffalo, New York, and you move to Florida, Southeast Florida, you want pink. You can't wait to get those summer clothes on. Although it's a little chilly today, so I put the shawl on to keep a little bit warmer. Okay. Irritable bowel syndrome, it's possible. There are other medicines that I think of more specifically for irritable bowel syndrome rather than Cimisafuga, but yes, it could be. Soft tissue injury, I don't think of it as a soft tissue injury medicine. It could, I suppose, be potential, but it's not what I think of. China for loss of fluids, yep. Rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia, no, I don't think so. I'm not saying you shouldn't try. I mean, certainly, I like to encourage folks to try. And then if it doesn't act, it doesn't act, then stop. That's not what we normally use it for. When do you use Bryonia instead of China for dehydration? Well, China is my first choice for dehydration. Bryonia can be useful, but China is my first choice. My son complains of fatigue every day when he comes home from school. It might. A young son, a young child, you could try that. It's not my first choice. But I've written about that, about fatigue in school-age children. I'm almost positive that's on my blog. So look at brain fatigue or children and fatigue, that kind of thing. I'm pretty sure I wrote about that quite a while ago. Thank you. You like my top. Thank you. Yes, Williamsville. Yeah. You lived in Williamsville. I lived in Colden. It's even worse. The snow, we would get 5 feet of snow, and everybody else in the city of Buffalo would get a foot. All right. What potency Cimisafuga? I think I said a 30. I would use 30 for angina and China after birth. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I knew someone would come up with it. Absolutely. A lot of fluids lost during birth. If there's fatigue after birth, you bet you're going to use China. Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear that. Natural or C-section. Well, sometimes a woman is almost about to give birth, and then they perform the C-section. So she's already lost, the water's broken, et cetera, and now, so yeah, water lost, absolutely. For appendicitis, yes, possibly. I've not used that for an appendicitis. I got to think about that a little bit. I got to look it up. All righty. China during labor. I don't know about during labor unless the person is really going into fatigue. It certainly is a possibility if they're going into fatigue and the water is broken and they've lost a lot of fluids and it's elongated, then yes, I would say yes, but not just because. Don't use China routinely after birth, only if fatigue is presenting. Yes, that's exactly so. If fatigue is presenting or it's really beginning, is China good for intense workout? Yes, for heavy perspiration. Yes, we do have to go. Well, we got actually 3 medicines in there. We included aloe as well. So, folks, do this, study it, learn it, go home. You're already home. Stay home and do good. Do good for your family, your husband, your children, your pets, your neighbors, your relatives, your church mates, your schoolmates. Help people. Get this word around. And then we can all link arms across the earth, all the way around, all of us, mothers and grandmothers, helping others. This is absolutely key. If you want to learn more, join a study group. They're very inexpensive. I have great study groups going. We've got a couple thousand people. I think at last count, it was close to 28. How many in the study groups?
Over 6,000.
Over 6,000 people. See, I can't even keep up with these numbers. I can't. 7,000. Oh, 7,000 people in our study groups. And we only just started it about 2 or 3 years ago. So I love you too, Kiran. You're welcome, Rebecca. It's wonderful. Have a great night and God bless you all. Mwah. See you next Monday. Bye.